Writing Out Loud, a program designed to explore in-depth interviews with writers to hear that words have voices.
Hello everyone, I'm Teresa Miller and welcome to Writing Out Loud. My very special guest today is music legend Jim Halsey. Thanks so much for being here, Jim.
Thanks, Teresa. Glad to be back with you.
And you've got a great new book out, Star Maker. When you were growing up in Independence, little boy there, what stars did you listen to on the radio?
Well, of course, up there I listened to Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys over KVOO in Tulsa, broadcast every noon, and Gene Autry, and that. But my musical interests were always toward big bands and jazz, even as a young person.
Yeah.
So I have a very eclectic taste. I like every kind of music.
Yeah. Did you ever think about becoming a performer yourself?
No. Well, maybe I played in a dance band in high school, and I thought, well, maybe I will do this. But between my high school graduation and when I started college, I took that summer and I went around and I saw some really great bands. Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Lionel Hampton, Woody Herman, Stan Kenton. I realized right then if I lived to be 1,000, I'd never be a good enough musician to play in those kind of bands.
What was your instrument?
Saxophone.
Oh, are you a pretty good sax player?
No.
No? Do you ever play now?
Not anymore. Manisa, my wife, bought me a clarinet a few years ago. And once in a while I get it out, but just don't have time.
How did you make the transition from being a music lover to being a talent broker?
Well, I wanted to be in the music business, so I knew that I wasn't going to be a player. So at that time, you didn't know what was available in the business. But I saw these guys that looked important around the bands, and they were the managers. Now, Roy Clark tells the story that I pulled up beside one of these shows behind the auditorium, and here's the bus and all the musicians getting off and tired in the bus and going in and getting ready to start their concert. And next to it was this brand new shiny Cadillac. And according to Roy, I said, well, who's that Cadillac belong to? They said, that's the band manager.
Oh.
So he claims, maybe it's true, I don't remember, but he claims that that's the way that I decided to be a manager. But it kind of was. I was always interested in selling and marketing, selling something and promoting. And I loved the promotion business, and that's the way I started in 1949, October 1949, with Leon McAuliffe from Tulsa.
You use the term manager, but you're known as an impresario. What's the distinction?
I think the distinction is that if you've been a manager a long time, they'll call you an impresario.
You've represented some of the all-time greats, and I wondered if you'd give us your quick take on Reba McEntire.
Well, she was very focused on what she wanted to do. She had success, and she wanted to be successful, and we were very fortunate to work with her. We took her to her first New York appearance. We helped present her at Carnegie Hall, and we helped present her at Universal Amphitheater. So she knew where she wanted to go, and she's certainly gotten there.
James Brown.
Mr. James Brown. I have a lot of respect for him. He was all these people that we're talking about all had a dedicated focus, and he was the hardest working man in show business.
No kidding.
Right.
Roy Clark.
Well, Roy is what you see is what you get. He's a big ball of fun and a twinkle in his eye and a smile and a little mischief. And, we're still working together. He and I got our first together in 1959 when Wanda Jackson hired him as her guitar player. And then we've had this great career together all since then.
Wanda Jackson.
Well, Wanda was another one of those, a great songwriter, and Hank Thompson was her mentor. And Hank had that perfect diction and pronunciation of every word that you didn't have any trouble understanding. Wanda learned that from Hank, and of course she went on to become a big star and still is, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. Wow.
Incredible. And then the Oak Ridge Boys.
Well, the Oak Ridge Boys are family. So the Oak Ridge Boys and Roy, are family. And we've been together for 35 years. And while they're four distinct guys, they make great harmony on stage. And they all have their own likes and wants and focuses. but they are very dedicated to their audience, their fans, and to the music.
Jim, we all know people who have beautiful voices, and yet for one reason or another, they do not make it in show business. What makes a star?
Well, sometimes it's being ahead of the times, sometimes it's being behind the times, but it's that uniqueness that a person has in their performance. Maybe it's a glitch in the voice, a twinkle in the eye, a smile, a wink, or whatever it is that is memorable. In a song, it's called the hook, and the performer has the hook as well, too.
Did you ever pass on anybody who went on to be a big star?
Oh, probably. I didn't pass on them, but Vince Gill was telling me a few years ago and said, you know, I tried to get in to see you for so long, and I never could get past the reception. And I said, well, I'm sorry about that because I think you're one of the greatest performers in our business. So, and who knows, you know, I was in on the very beginning of Elvis's career.
That must have been exciting. Did you have any idea he was going to be the star he was?
Well, other people did. And I was actually in the Army, but I was booking Hank Thompson through southern Louisiana. This 1954, 55. And I needed an opening act, and this friend of mine, Leo Zabelin, said, you ought to hire this kid on the Louisiana Hayride, Elvis Presley. And I said, you know, I don't even know what he sounds like, but I love the name. So Hank actually hired Elvis for 6 days, paid him $300 a night, and he came out and opened for Hank and just drove the audience crazy.
What are some of the biggest myths about Elvis?
Well, you know, I don't know. Elvis was always very polite and genuine to me, and I don't know what other stories are around about him, but I can't say anything bad about Elvis because it never happened when we were dealing or talking.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the story that emerges, that in spite of all of his fame and success, he was really a pretty down-to-earth Southern country boy.
Yeah.
You mentioned your own eclectic tastes in music, and you've managed a wide variety of artists, everybody from the Glenn Miller Orchestra to Roy Orbison. What's your favorite Roy Orbison story?
Well, I wanted to introduce Roy behind the Iron Curtain. So I was helping produce a festival in Bulgaria, Sunny Beach, Bulgaria. And we had this opportunity to take Roy Orbison there as the featured headliner for that festival. It drew people from all over Eastern Europe, mainly. So I explained to him, he said, yes, I'd like to go. So we get in the plane, you got on the plane in Nashville, and you go to New York, you go to London, you go to Madrid, you go to someplace else and change. And finally, after about 2 days of traveling, we're in Sunny Beach, Bulgaria, near Varna. And everybody's just dead tired when we get off the plane. And he looked over at me, he said, Halsey, where are we? And I said, Roy, you're in Sunny Beach, Bulgaria. He said, Bulgaria? I thought you said we were going to Bavaria. Now, I don't know whether he was kidding. He never told me, but he wowed him in Bulgaria. All these Eastern European hard-nosed communists out there, thousands of people screaming and yelling for him. He was a magical artist.
Did that surprise you, the response you got?
Oh, not at all. Not with him.
And then you took tours to the Soviet Union.
Yes. Well, before that, we took Roy Clark. We've taken the Oak Ridge Boys, and so we had. At that time, I was president of an international festival organization that was part of UNESCO. So I was involved in all the festivals all around the world, and that opened the doors for us to go to places like the Soviet Union, to Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Poland, you know, places that normally didn't have Western performers. Roy Clark and the Oak Ridge Boys were the first country music artists to ever headline a tour in the Soviet Union. And it was just gangbusters. It was tremendous. And we got the word that it was not only culturally successful, but diplomatically successful as well, too.
Which had to be important to you because of your work with UNESCO.
It was, yes.
And your two trips to the Soviet Union were 12 years apart. Did you see a difference the second time you went?
We did, and my wife, Manisa, took a Native American art show there. And it was the first Native American art show that was there for 9 months in 3 different cities.
What are some of the misconceptions we had about the Soviet Union at that time?
Well, that we thought that they were going to bomb us any moment.
Yeah.
We get over there, and all the Soviets thought we were going to bomb them. You know, and there's where Roy Clark and the Oaks made a tremendous difference. They saw it was a very cold audience the first night until about 15 minutes into the show, and Roy Clark and the Oak Ridge Boys warmed up that cold. So by cold, I mean it's 25 below zero too.
Yeah.
But they were there and say, "Okay, Americans, entertain us," and they did, and they made friends.
How did you handle the language barrier?
Well, we had interpreters. And then some of them, you know, you learn enough to talk about food and where to go.
But when Roy was singing, for example, did you have translators there?
We did, but so much of his, in music, you don't really need that so much because they understand the words some way, they feel the words, and it's the music that carries that.
So there's truth to the cliche that music is the universal language.
Absolutely. Certainly is.
You now do not handle the booking agency so much anymore.
No.
So much anymore. And you're focusing at this stage in your career on helping aspiring
Right.
musicians.
I'm still in the management business, and I managed the Oaks and the Oak Ridge Boys, and of course Roy Clark. We've been together for a long time. But right now we have other projects that we're doing. One of those very important ones is called the Billboard Magazine Song Contest.
Which you launched, didn't you?
We did like 20 years ago, so we're launching another one now. And if anybody wants our website, it's starmaker360.com.
Great.
And it tells you about your opportunities of being discovered by writing a good song.
That's great. Why this particular focus for you on education right now and that outreach?
Well, I think the main reason is because in this unique business of entertainment, there are only a few schools in America that have any type of education program where you go in and you learn about managers, agents, music publishers, press and PR, specialized attorneys, promoters, stagehands, and that. And so I am interested in that. That's why I wrote the book.
Yes.
I'm doing an apprentice program now at the office in Tulsa to where I will take maybe 3 or 4 young people that come in. It's just like a school. You're in there every day for so many hours and so many weeks. And at the end of a certain period of time, you will have finished my apprentice program. And in that, they will observe me on the phone with managers, agents, television producers, buyers, casino operators, promoters. They'll get the whole spectrum of the business. And it's a good program. Then I also have an online program that's just one class, the Introduction to Music. And I don't know, I just have so many interests in a lot of different things.
Oh, absolutely you do. What's the single most important lesson you can pass along to your students? There are lots of them out there, but the single most important.
Well, to stay focused on where you want to go and keep following your dream. I'm a person of dreams. That's what I've done all my life.
What do you think about shows like American Idol and America's Got Talent?
I think they're fabulous. You give somebody a chance to come out there and that maybe, I mean, Carrie Underwood from here in Oklahoma is a good example of that. And now she's one of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah.
And she may have been a big star, but American Idol certainly helped push that along.
Oh, I think so. Gave her opportunities she would never have
Right.
had otherwise, coming from where she did. One of the chapters in this book deals with early ethics lessons that came to you. I wonder if you might share one with us and tell us why it's still relevant today, because a lot of people, Jim, think of the music business as being pretty cutthroat.
Well, it really is not. It's not any more than any other business. And there are opportunists in every line of work, in every business. But I think I grew up with a small town ethic of all your neighbors know who you are and who your family is, and so you kind of treat everybody. But I learned from my family store. My family had a department store in Independence, Kansas, and I hung around the store all the time there. And I always was interested in selling. So I would, this is a kid like I was 9 or 10 or 11 years old, I'd find things to sell, and I was selling seeds of one kind or another. And at the end of, I sold so many packages of seeds, I was going to get this giant telescope that I saw. I subscribed to that on the back of a comic book.
Yeah.
So I did everything I was supposed to do, sent all the money in that, And when I got the package of the telescope, I said, well, that can't be it. I opened it up because it looked like it would take up the whole backyard if you set it up. Well, it was just some cardboard tubing, and it was such a disappointment, such a fraud. My dad said, you know, that's something that you learn in this business. There are a lot of people out there that will not treat you right and not do what they said they're going to and mislead you. He said, that's why we have a successful department store, is because the customer comes first and we take care of our customer. So the next time, I said, well, I'm going to do it for money. I'm not going to do it for a prize. So I did that. And there was a thing called Dolly Does It. It was a little pot scrubber sold for 10 cents a piece. And I went door to door, and I made a penny off each one that I sold. So I went door to door, and I sold all these Dolly Does It pot scrubbers. And I'd learned from my family store that a lot of times you would make some clever things to sell things. So at the store, they were always having, a pair of hose and a 2 pair for such and such, 1 pair for this and a 2 pair for this. So I thought, well, I'll sell 2 Dolly Does It. So they were 10 cents a piece. And I went around. The clever catch was I would sell 2 Dolly Does It, 1 for a dime, 2 for a quarter. And I didn't realize till I got home that I had actually overcharged. But they were all so impressed with my sales pitch. Well, yeah, I'll give you a quarter. Give me 2 of them. So I thought, well, I didn't sleep all night.
Yeah.
I retraced my steps the next day and went back to and I said, I'm sorry, I inadvertently charged too much yesterday. And instead of 2 for a quarter, actually you could have bought 2 for 20 cents. So I'm going to refund you a nickel. Or for another nickel, I will give you another Dolly Does It. So I figured that's one of the first upsells that at least I learned about it.
Well,
almost all of them gave me another nickel, and they got 3 Dolly Does It's.
What were some of the hardest ethical decisions you had to make when you were starting out as an impresario?
Well, to make sure that people got the right value for their ticket. And sometimes you didn't really know what you were going to, you knew what you had to charge in order to sell enough tickets to come out. And I think maybe when I was running the company, I had more ethical charges because we had all of these artists, and all of them had a certain value to them, and was being able to charge the right price and not overcharge for an artist. But also you don't want to undercharge and sell them for less than they're worth. So I don't know whether that's an ethical problem or one of just figuring the common sense so the person that you sell that artist to not only can make money with them, but their customers are going to be satisfied.
You're also a man of your word. Word is that when you say something, that's as good as a contract. Is that important to you?
Yes, it is. And I expect other people to do the same for me. If people tell me something, I expect it to be that way, whether we have a contract or not.
One of the things that I found so interesting in this book, you're talking about logo and trademarks, and you refer to them as spiritual shields rather than brands.
Well, mine is.
And there's meaning to that beyond semantically, don't you think? Are you trying to make a larger point about that? That these symbols need to take on special meaning for us?
For me, they do. Because all of my brands, which I use a Woody Crumbo piece of Eagle Dancer, so it means something to me because of the family relationship.
Sure.
I'm married to his daughter, Melissa Crumbo, but also the relationship that the ceremony of dancers, Indian dancers, have with their spirituality. So the hidden thing behind me is I put that shield out there, and it takes a matter of ethics forward, whether people know about it or not. They've got the shield. I'm using that as my shield that I'm putting forward.
You know, as we talk, Jim, as I read your book, the thing that came across to me, this is all very personal to you. It's more than business. Has that made it trickier in some ways? Because you've been with the Oak Ridge Boys for over 35 years. For some people, you didn't have as long a relationship. Was letting go hard?
No, it's every day is different, and every day has a new challenge and a new meaning to me. I've never been so concerned about the outcome monetarily as I have been the performance of what the event turns out to be. Do you help people? One of the things that I've learned early on is that through a performance on stage, a performer can actually go out there and change the lives of an entire audience out there. Maybe make them feel better. Maybe they have discomfort or financial problems or illness or sickness or family. You don't know what it is. But for the few moments that that performer's on stage doing their performance and their music, they transform that person's life into a different space. That person can go on and still have the same problems, but they can tune back to that concert performance last week or last month or last year and put themselves in a better space. So part of what I see as my obligation over these years is to have the right type of performer that's on stage that gives a performance that transforms people's lives.
How personally involved do you become with your performers?
I don't think so on a personal level, you know, where I hang out or, you know, go on fishing trips or something like that with it, because it's, but I think everybody gets the message of what our obligation and our duty is. And to me, that's the most important thing that I do. I feel like, in a certain sense, that I'm in service to them and to the audience. And I felt that our company did the same thing. Our company was in service to our artists and to the audience.
What would you have done, for example, if you'd had a client like Lindsay Lohan or Britney Spears going through a lot of difficult times?
Well, I don't think I'd have a client like that.
That's what I wonder. You have a standard of behavior that people subscribe to when they work for you.
Well, it's not that I was so rigid in that, is the fact that life is just too short and you're on a path to try to get a lot of things done, and those things distract. Now, I feel I have an empathy for them, and I'm really sorry for them that they have their problems, but I'm just going different places than they are.
How does the entertainment industry today compare to what it was when you were starting out?
It's the same. Everything's the same, just different techniques and different gadgets to work with.
Is the media worse today than it was years ago?
So. No.
What do you think about performers who complain about the media all the time? Do you have much patience with that?
Well, I think that's it. What people are free to say whatever they want to say. The media's always been great to me and to most all of my artists. I can't think of an artist that the media hasn't been good to.
Recently, you and your work were honored at the Oklahoma History Center. It was a great, great exhibit. And it turns out that really you're the custodian of some of the great historical markers of rock and roll and music history and country history. What do you consider your most prized possessions?
My memory.
That's a good one.
Well, we have a lot. And I'm one of those people that just doesn't throw anything away. So now, years later, I'm glad that I didn't, because I have all of these interesting things. That exhibition is still up, will be till the first of the year. Okay. And you know, they're talking about this Oklahoma Pop Cultural Center in the Brady District here, which I really support, because that would give a place to house a lot of my memorabilia and plus Leon Russell's and Bob Wills and Hank Thompson and Roy Clark. And when you look at the number of performers that have come from Oklahoma, this is the richest state in America as a spawning ground and breeding ground for good performers. Not just country music either, rock and roll, classical, actors, everything else.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's that all the iron in that red earth out there.
Well, there's not so much red dirt over where I came from in Tahlequah.
Well, it's the water there.
It's the water there. The Cherokee water there. Jim, when you look back over your career, what would you point to as the outstanding moments, the highlights, the moments that you will always look to as definitive for you?
Well, I think probably one of the most important is the trip to the Soviet Union.
Of course.
Because I think we changed lives, I think we changed destiny, and I think we helped countries understand each other, or at least talk to each other better. And I saw that when Roy and the Oaks did those 27 sold-out performances there, and most of the audiences were anywhere from 5 to 20,000 people. You could stand backstage and literally see that audience change their whole attitude toward us and toward America at that time. At the end of those days, I know that we had changed a lot of lives for the better.
One last question. What was your most memorable moment as a fan so far? What's been your most memorable moment?
Well, I'm a big Woody Herman fan, so I love it when Woody had all those 5 trumpets and 4 trombones blasting as loud as anything, and that was exciting to me. But I think that one of the highlights, or it's a continuing highlight, is when I was able to, and still do, see the Oak Ridge Boys and the Roy Clark come together and do a magical performance, no matter where it is.
Jim, it's been so great talking with you again. Congratulations on Star Makers.
Teresa, thank you.
Okay. And thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.